We missed last week and there's a lot to catch up on, so hopefully I'm going to bed at a reasonable time. Hey, I'm Alex Ratcliffe from Board Game Co, and this is To Back or Not to Back, where we're going to be going over the various crowdfunding campaigns, Kickstarters, GameFound, all of that, covering, well, the campaigns. That's basically what I just said. But anyways, first, before we dive into it, first of all, a word from our sponsor, GameFound, specifically covering the Button Shy reprint campaign over on GameFound with $53,000 raised, 1,400 backers. This is the Button Shy reprint campaign going over, well, 6 new games as of right now. They're currently adding a few games. They start off with a few options, and they've been adding games one at a time to give you the variety of options that you'll have. Right now, we have Spaceship, we have Revolvenar, we have Wonder Tales, we have Ragemore, Tides, and Mint Julep over there. Currently are the 6 games currently available, as well as a few available as optional buys as well. For instance, if you want Sprawlopolis or Tussie Mussy, they have those as well. There'll be a link down below. Make sure to use the link to know that so that they know that I sent you, and that is Button Shy campaign over on GameFound. And with that, we're going to jump straight into the Cult of the Now. Cult of the Now, where we take a look at a currently available game. In this case, one that is available, well, a Kickstarter game that is available at the moment. Wild Serengeti over at Miniature Market for $44, and I don't know if you remember, I certainly checked it up. This was $54 if you would have backed it on the campaign, plus paying shipping for it. You would have gotten a promo pack, so it's not exactly the same, but this is a regular reminder that you can get games later at retail. Sometimes you missed out on a promo card here, a promo card there, sometimes you missed out on something, this, that, the other, but other times you just get the game when you want it, when you're interested in it, and not paying a year and a half in advance for something that you may or may not be interested in or care about down the road. So Cult of the Now. I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't get Wild Serengeti. I'm saying if you want Wild Serengeti, you can go ahead and get it now at Miniature Market. From there, let's go ahead and start off with Kickstarter with Board Game Adjacent. Board Game Adjacent starting off with Epic Encounters Local Legends. This is going to be coming from Steamforged Games, 1,800 backers. And by the way, just 1 second over here, Steamforged Games just took on Euthia from Dia Games. They just retook on Euthia, the campaign. So Euthia's going to be coming back to Kickstarter. Well, coming to Kickstarter, was on GameFound. But Euthia, if you missed out on Euthia, that's going to be available July 26th, if I'm not mistaken. So just while we're talking about Steamforged, just an announcement that that's something that is worth paying attention to, because I just recently did my upcoming Kickstarters for July, and I did not include that one because I didn't have that information at the time. Steamforged Games is bringing Euthia back to Kickstarter, so there's that. In any case, going back to Epic Encounters Local Legends, this is Board Game Adjacent. It's more RPG adjacent content, although there's also I believe some Bard Sung content. In case you're interested in that, there's a Bard Sung pledge over here. You know, all the Bard Sung content that you want. There's a variety of pledge levels from anything you can buy to give you D&D content, to give you fleshed out campaigns and taverns and characters and all these different things. Lots of miniatures, lots of content, lots of stuff. This is RPG stuff, less my bread and butter, but I mean some nice miniatures. That's my bread and butter. I do like miniatures. But that's going to be the Steamforged Games, the Local Legends over on Kickstarter. $200,000 raised. Very popular, doing very well. Steamforged in general has a strong line of RPG content that goes on Kickstarter, and then alternating with board game content that goes on Kickstarter. They have both, and this is the RPG content. From there we have Trickdraw, fast-paced card game magic flipping cowboys. This is currently not funded yet. $7,800 backers, $7,800 out of a $10,000 goal. Should likely fund by the time this campaign's over. We have 20 days to go. That is plenty of time. 126 backers. This is taking place in the universe of Salandria, which I don't know anything about it, but this is Trickdraw, a card game which your goal is to get a variety of points, but you're constantly flipping things. You're constantly flipping your own cards to take their actions. You're flipping your own cards to get your bounties. You're flipping your opponent's cards. There's a whole sequence of trying to set up your chains of what you're trying to do to get your actions, your abilities, and your bounties to ultimately win the game. The game's going to cost you $20 and a $25 MSRP. Now factor in shipping is going to be there as well, which means not the best price is the short version, not the best price. You also can pay $29 to get 2 sets for if you have more than 4 friends to play with. In other words, the base set plays up to 5, so if you have 6 people, then I mean, it's phrased that way, so if you plus 4 friends. So once you have 6 people, then you can get 2 decks for an extra $9 basically to get a second deck to play with more people. But that's Trickdraw. Short version, this one's probably not going to hold its value, but also with 126 backers, you might be seeing limited availability in this one, so yeah, that's the situation. From there we have Cyberpunk 2077, the Gangs of Night City, the board game. Now this is going to be the equivalent of our Should You Back It with 68 hours to go. There's not a lot of time left. I have not done like a full proper Should You Back It on this one. I did a video of, you know, talking about how it's the worst performing Command campaign to date. I did talk about that, briefly touched upon the Should You Back It, didn't heavily dive into it. And to be clear, like, I mean, let's not get too sidetracked. I was going to say, I like the game. I do like the game. I just put a review up yesterday. You can check that out if you want. I think the game is great. Whether or not you should get on Kickstarter is a different conversation. Command has had a lot of drama lately. Just a lot of drama lately. But let's go ahead and dive into it. 5,000 backers, $544,000 raised, 68 hours to go. This is still outperforming the vast majority of Kickstarter campaigns out there. It's just underperforming when you consider the fact that it's Come On, and it's Come On with the Cyberpunk license, and the two of those together should easily be $1 million plus campaign, and this one is going to be lucky to cross $700,000 at this point. I think $700,000 is still in the pot. 800 is pushing it, probably. We'll see. Ultimately, we'll see. I'm sure they'll release an all-in pledge. Cyberpunk 2077 is an area control game, sort of-ish. It's area control, it's got area control, but it's got a lot of other things going on as well. You can check out the review we put up, you can check out any number of other content. This is well into it. Crackle's going to have another gameplay going up, an in-person gameplay, as well as the already online TTS gameplay. Dice Tower's in-person gameplay. There's a lot of content out there, but this is a strong game with a lot of variety to how you can try to pursue your pathways to victory. The campaign is going to, the base pledge over here for the game is coming, the base pledge for the campaign is coming at $110 for the Edgerunner pledge, which is the base game, plus the Night City, plus all applicable rewards and the exclusive Edgerunners for the game. So you're getting a lot of exclusive content, a lot of stretch goals, all that. And there's a bunch of optional buys that have been released as well as over the course of the campaign. So if you scroll down over here, this is just showing you all the miniatures, nicely spaced out to make it look like this as much as possible. Obviously, $110 is more than you'll pay for a retail copy of the game. This game will be significantly cheaper when it hits retail, but with significantly less stuff. The question is what you value and whether you care enough to pay basically twice the price of the game, because shipping on this is $50 to $60 on the low end, which means you're looking at paying literally twice the price, if not more, to get this on Kickstarter. Do you care about that? Well, it depends on how much you care about all that Edgerunner content, and it depends on whether you care about any of the expansions and getting your hands on those, because they come with either some Kickstarter exclusive content, or one of the expansions is fully Kickstarter exclusive. But you can see over here some of the unlocks over here, just the bunch of stuff you have, a ton of stuff, very fun stuff if you want this stuff. More content, and a full 6th Street gang over here. That's a fully exclusive faction. There's plenty of exclusive content here. Will it double the play value of your game? If you're playing this a lot, very possibly. If you're not playing this a lot, you probably don't need all that extra stuff. So that's going to be a decision you have to make for yourself based on how often you think this is going to hit the table. For myself, this is not the best area control game I've played, but it is solidly enjoyable, and it's one that plays in a very reasonable time frame, coming in at under 90 minutes, which is one of the main reasons I think this does have a spot in my collection, because you combine very solid gameplay and an accessible playtime, and I think this one's sticking around for a bit, although I need more plays. So like, take it with a grain of salt. If I, get it down the road and I play it 3 more times and I'm like, I don't need to keep it, don't blame me. I'm warning you right now, I need more plays to have a firmer, stronger opinion. I think it drifts upwards, but time will tell. As far as the expansions, they've unlocked or released 3 expansions so far. It's possible we'll see more. I'm not certain at this point with the campaign. Usually at this point we see an all-in at the end, but we currently have the Families and Outcasts expansion, which is going to be giving you a 5th player board as well as some new gangs over here. We have the Wraith gangs and the Aldados gangs over here, as well as a 5th player board over here. So you have a full new area of the board. Honestly, not a fan of how that lays on the board. I'd almost rather we have a double-sided board and just compress the areas. Obviously that does mean that you're getting, well, they already have a double-sided board to be modulated for that, so I guess that's not a good solution. So I don't love it, is what I'm saying. I don't love it, and I don't imagine I'll be playing this with 5 players a lot, although honestly the playtime means it wouldn't be the craziest conversation. So I guess I'm intrigued. I'll probably get suckered into the all-in pledge anyway, but I'm not loving how this shows up over here. Past that, there's extra gang variety. Speaking of extra gang variety, we also have the Kickstarter exclusive expansion over here, Gang Wars, which is going to give you the Animal Gang, the Moxes gangs, and the Scavengers gang, as well as these cards over here, as well as something. I'm pretty sure there's something else. I can't recall. Maybe not. I vaguely recall there was these scavenger cards or whatever it was that goes in the game. I don't remember. I may have misremembered that. But new gangs over here. So if you want more gangs, each with their own ability and each with their own miniatures, that's great. Are they essential? No, but if you're playing this game a lot, they're certainly nice to have. It depends on if you're playing this game a lot. And then lastly, we have the Cyberpunk over here, the Welcome to the Gear Up for the Motor Pool over here, which is the other expansion. This bringing you $40 for this. This is another Kickstarter exclusive expansion, bringing you a bunch of vehicles. I don't know how they actually integrate with the gameplay, but a bunch of vehicles and stories and other stuff for the game that will give you a specific story just around the vehicles and all that. No idea how it actually integrates the gameplay. Intrigued, but also skeptical. I like the game a lot. I like the variety of the Edgerunners. I like the variety of the factions, and I am intrigued by what the vehicles add without being certain. And of course, they will look probably ridiculous on the table with tiny little vehicles next to figures the same basic size. I don't actually know the exact sizing, but I don't imagine they're appropriately sized compared to the people, just based on the size of the board. That's what you have over here as far as these 3 expansions, these 3 optional buys over here. There'll likely be an all-in pledge tomorrow. As far as should you back or should you not, the short version is there's always 2 sides of this conversation. The first is, do you personally value the extra content And it depends. I think the extra content is useful if you're playing this game a lot. I think it's completely unnecessary if you're diving to this game 5 times. So it depends on knowing yourself, knowing your group, and knowing if this is likely to hit the table. As far as will it hold its value, I still think yes. Now, I am a drop less certain than the usual command campaign. That's the reality of having a command campaign that's funding at half of what the low end of what I would have expected. So I'm not 100% certain. Maybe it translates into not having great aftermarket sales. Maybe this game, shows up at whatever stores, TJ Maxx for $40 for retail copy. I don't anticipate that happening, but it's possible, which can certainly hurt the overall, release or anticipation of the game. That said, that's all my caveats. I still think this holds its value. I still think an all-in pledge on this with the Kickstarter exclusive content, with an IP, with a good game, and it is a good game, I'm not worried about that. I think it still will hold its value, although granted with the drop of a less certainty, comparatively speaking, to prior command campaigns. From there we move to Helsinki Deluxe from Queen Games. Helsinki Deluxe, 457 backers, $55,000 raised, 4 days to go. Helsinki Deluxe is the spiritual successor to Copenhagen, which basically means that you're going to have a little center board over here. You're going to be moving pieces around to select cards. You're going to be going ahead and grabbing the pieces, filling up your board. It's a polyomino game, which you're filling up your personal board, and that's basically it. They're going to be having a regular version and deluxe version of the game. Supposedly, they are only ever printing 2,000 copies of the deluxe because of the increased price of acrylic and all that stuff. So if you want deluxe, now's the time to get it. I'm sure they'll make an exception if down the road it proves to be a very popular game that everyone wants to get their hands on. But as of right now, deluxe is going to only have 2,000 copies. The good news is 2,000 copies is actually still plenty, because currently Helsinki Deluxe is 26 left of 250 over here. Am I reading that right? Or am I reading the wrong section over here? That's Copenhagen and Helsinki. It doesn't seem like there's really that much of a concern of the 2,000 copies going just yet. That said, as far as where you can get them, it's a different conversation. And currently it's $59 for the base version of the game, and it's $59 for Copenhagen if you want that as well. $74 for the deluxe, and $74 for Copenhagen Deluxe, and then $110 for the classic bundle, and $135 for the deluxe bundle of both. As far as should you back it, should you will it hold its value, all that stuff. Short version is if Copenhagen is anything to go by, the answer is probably not. Copenhagen did okay on the secondhand market, but not particularly amazingly, and I think this is likely going to hold true for Helsinki as well. I think it's one that there's a demand for. There's always a demand for good, solid polyomino games, and this is falling into the same genre as Copenhagen, which means there will be an audience for it, and it likely will be fairly well received. Fairly well received is a different conversation than people paying $74 for an acrylic version of a polyomino game, though. I think it's one that's less likely to hold its value, although it depends. From there, moving on to the Button Shy reprint campaign, the thing we talked about at the beginning of this video. Button Shy reprint. This is coming from Button Shy Games. $52,000 raised, $1,400 backers, 5 days to go. This is a reprint campaign which Button Shy has previously done on, I believe, like 2 or 3 times on Kickstarter, and they're doing one now over on GameFound too. They started with 3 games. I believe they started with these 3 games over here. Let's see, Revolver Noir, Wonder Tales, and Spaceship, if I'm not mistaken. And then across the course of the campaign, as the funding totals raised, they started giving votes and having people unlock more options. And again, you could buy Tussie Mussie and Sprawl Opus over here, as well as a variety of expansions if you want to get the expansions for those games as a separate optional buy. But they've also unlocked Rage More, Tides, and Mint Julep over here as additional options for you. You can look into all these games in terms of the actual details of each one, but this is standard Button Shy content. Games that tend to play well at 1 or 2 players, sometimes both, and sometimes higher player counts, giving you some degree of something in 18 cards with an expansion that mixes in for 6 cards. The base game costing you around $10 to $12, and the expansions costing between $2 to $4 for each, and they're bundling it all together so you can get a whole bunch of anything. All 6 games and their 10 expansions is one of the pledges. That's going to be $80 for all 6 games and all 10 expansions. That is a reasonable price point for everything, assuming you want everything, which is where we get to the should you back or should you not. And the first thing I'll say about Button Shy is I love Button Shy campaigns. I'm a sucker for a lot of Button Shy campaigns, and I want a lot of Button Shy games, but also not all Button Shy games are created equal. Do your research on them. Research is up to you, because any individual game is worth roughly $12 to $14 of cash, so decide how much time you want to spend on researching those. Maybe it's worth it to you, maybe it's not, but do your research, see if a game is for you. Some are going to be well received, some are going to be less so well received, and so that's a decision you'll have to make as far as which ones are intriguing to you, which ones pull you in more or not. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? Generally, they don't do a great job holding their value just because it's hard to sell things this small and not take a wash on shipping. But as far as is it the best price point, generally Kickstarter and GameFound are giving you the better price points for when you want to anyways get a Button Shy campaign and see what your options are. From there, we have Beyond Humanity Astrominers. Beyond Humanity Astrominers, 583 backers, $81,000 raised, 8 days to go. Beyond Humanity, this is from the same people who did Beyond Humanity Colonies, or whatever it was, I always forget the name, but Beyond Humanity Astrominers takes place in the same universe, but it's a totally different experience. This is a dice placement game of rolling your dice, assigning to locations, trying to gather the resources, and eventually accomplishing missions while players try to get in your way, loading them onto these giant spacecraft and all that stuff as you refresh round to round and figure out what's coming out, where you can go, what you can get. It's basically dice placement. That's all it is. It's dice placement. Not all it is in a negative sense. It's a dice placement engine, which is their own unique theme, aspects of the mechanics, not necessarily any single thing that I saw that majorly made it stand out, but it's a dice placement game. Roll your dice, place your dice, get the stuff, do that again and again until eventually one player wins the game. The problem part is this game's coming in at $89 for the Astrominer First Class. $89, and it's this is obviously just me judging at a glance here, but at a glance, I'm not seeing an $89 worth of content here. Now, this is the usual conversation about the fact that shipping's going up, freight's going up, cost of goods are going up, and so you do generally see more and more increased prices across a variety of campaigns, and this may be one of those times where we see an $89 price point, and that's not even for like the everything over here. If you want everything, it's going to be $129 for everything for the all-in, but those price points are a lot. The question is, will they hold up after the fact? What will the retail be? What will the MSRP be on these games? I am skeptical that this is one that will hold this value. I'm skeptical that this is one that's going to be holding for $89 for the base game over here. I'm just not seeing an $89 game, even with the increased prices. Obviously, the State of the Unknown, we've talked about this in prior videos. I don't know how things will play out in the State of the Unknown, but this is asking a lot it's asking a fairly deluxe price point for a game that looks pretty decent, but doesn't necessarily look like it justifies that price point at a surface level glance, so take that as it were. There's definitely exclusive content over here, so there are reasons to get this now as opposed to waiting for retail. The question is how well will you receive that? Is it worth it for you? And I just don't think the market's going to hold that price point, and part of that's biased by the fact that there's only 584 backers. Not a small number, they're certainly funded already, but that lack of demand, lack of a huge buy-in on Kickstarter usually translates to that same lack on the secondhand market down the road. That's Beyond Humanity Astrominers. Maid Knight Saga, The Story of Altisa Complete Edition. This is the next one over here. 318 backers, $38,000 to go. $38,000 raised, not to go. 10 days to go. This is the story of, well, being a Maid Knight. Being a Maid Knight on your saga to become a fully fledged Maid Knight. I don't fully get it, but as far as that, they're going to have tableau building, they're going to have drafting, they're going to have basically building out your character. Are you going to class? Are you skipping classes? Are you taking the exam? Are you going to become a provisional maid license and gather your resource, your unique ability as you unlock it? Are you going to be using your cards for their abilities or getting extra, perks or whatnot? All these things going on as you try to build up your character. I highly recommend the video from 90 Second Nerd, which is a channel that I don't see nearly enough content from. They do fantastic content when I do see them, but they have a 90-second breakdown of the game, and their 90-second breakdowns are always on point, very well done, great graphics, great everything, great explanation, so I highly recommend that if you want to get a feel for how this game plays. Past that, the pledge levels come in at $60 for the base complete edition over here, and $120 for the all-in complete edition over there, and there is a big but, which is the shipping is also pretty expensive, coming in at $25 or $30 for the shipping, which is not a small amount, unfortunately, and you'll have to factor that in as far as, where, depending on which region you're in, and if it's worth it, because that's adding a chunk. Your $60 pledge just jumped to $85, which is not small. Your $120 pledge just jumped to $150, which again is not small. As far as will it hold its value, will it not? I'm skeptical it will. There's Kickstarter exclusive content here, so there is a reason to get this here, but as far as the price point of this one, 318 backers means the demand is not terribly present, and as usual, like I said already, that demand usually carries over, or lack of demand usually carries over into the final product as well, so I think the price points are very high in this. I think it will have an audience. Generally, anime-based board game content does have a very small but loyal audience, and so we've seen that with many other games that drift towards the anime genre. It's possible this will hold its value, but I'm skeptical that it will. From there, we have Omicron Protocol Critical Condition Expansion. 106 backers, $4,000 raised, 10 days to go. This is an expansion for Omicron Protocol. They're bringing you the critical hit expansion, the critical condition expansion, introducing 2 new characters. Ranger and Z are cross-faction characters. And Omicron Protocol is a game I highly recommend watching William the Hungry Gamer's review on this one. You want to check out more coverage, or the variety of other channels have covered this. One Stop Co-op Shop has covered this. Who else has covered this? So Very Wrong About Games has covered this. Whole bunch of channels have covered this game. I'm pretty sure One Stop Co-op Shop covered it. I could be wrong. I've seen them so much today that I might be just confusing them. But this is a skirmish game with a whole bunch of characters, a whole bunch of everything going on, and this is introducing a new character pack for that game. The pledge levels over here are going to be coming in at $12 for the Just Survivor over here, which is giving you one of the cross-faction characters, or $20 for both of the cross-faction characters, up to $90 for the Omicron Protocol core box, and then $145 for Critical Survivor, and $235 for all in. Basically, this is almost like a reprint campaign, giving you the option to get a whole bunch of Omicron Protocol content, as well as getting, just the extra characters, depending on who you are and what you're interested. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? This is too soon to tell for sure on Omicron Protocol itself, which is, if you look at the original campaign, It hasn't fully landed yet, hasn't fully been distributed to a point where you can take a look at the sales and how well it's doing. But this is one that I would say price point wise, I am skeptical that it'll hold its value. Not a guarantee, not in the slightest. I'm skeptical though that there's enough of an aftermarket demand. Again, 107 backers on a reprint campaign usually just means that there's not a ton of buzz, not a ton of hype around this game. And that lack of buzz, lack of hype tends to translate over to secondhand market, as well as if it's a game that, you know, people are hunting down, desperately seeking, or whether it's one that had its moment in the sun, that's light on Kickstarter, and one is just going to have to fight an uphill battle to garner attention on. So I do not think this one is holding its value. From there we have Summit Sanity Big Box from Inside Up Games. This is the expansion, the Sanity expansion to Summit over here. 594 backers, $70,000 raised, 15 days to go. This is bringing you, well, the Sanity expansion. Summit already had a Kickstarter. I think it may have had 2 Kickstarters. It had at least 1 Kickstarter. It had the Yeti and Teams expansion. It's been available for a while. Trey Parker put it as his #1 game of all time. Trey Parker, the creator of South Park, who did a top 10 over the Dice Tower, in case you want to check that out. A whole bunch of people really enjoy this game, really like this game, and it comes with a variety of play modes. I believe it comes with a competitive, it comes with cooperative, the teams, the Yeti's going to be an expansion, giving you a little Yeti chasing you around, and the Sanity expansion is the most recent expansion we're seeing on Kickstarter, introducing its own little Sanity board, if we can find it over here. The Sanity board, the Sanity track over here, as you try to figure out what bonuses you need and how to be mindful of your Sanity track and the hypotherm marker, balancing all these things for pros and cons, all that stuff as you, well, try to take advantage of those cards. It also comes with a big box. We're going to see over here a big box on this campaign. The big box is 1.5 times larger and costs a hefty chunk of change. The big box is going to cost, let's see if we can find the price point, $99 for that over there. What are you getting for that $99? Well, first of all, you're getting the $30 Summit Sanity expansion, but then additionally, you're getting all these things that are slowly being unlocked and shown. So we have extra inserts, we have a stitched map, we have all these things that are slowly being unlocked that will be in the big box, which means do not think you're getting the base game in that big box. That is going to be a separate pledge or an add-on if you want that, but you are getting a bunch of extras. Is that worth it to you? That's a separate conversation, but this is aiming to be a deluxe experience. They have the whole insert animation, all that fun stuff over there, and then they have the various pledge levels, $25 for the Summit, for the Sanity expansion, $99 for the Sanity expansion plus the big box, and then $185 for absolutely everything, unless absolutely everything includes creating your own character, in which case that'll be $1,500 instead. As far as should you back it, and by the way, this is a game about climbing a mountain. I don't know if I said that. It's a game about climbing a mountain, competitively, cooperatively, different ways to play it, different expansions you can mix in, all that stuff. As far as should you back it, should you not, will it hold its value? The short version is the original Summit has actually done fairly well for itself, or more like fairly decent for itself. It's one that if you look at the sold prices on the secondhand market, you can definitely find copies that have sold for below the value, but you can also find copies that have sold for above the value or at their value. And so this is one that falls into that middling zone where it seems like it's a decent price point. If you want the game, you're likely not taking a huge hit if you have to sell it on the secondhand market, but also you still have to go through the work to basically just get a par return. So, I mean, if you want to try it and are willing to go through that work, then by all means. Otherwise, yeah, this is one that you could back or you could skip on and try to get in the secondhand market yourself down the road. Then we have Drop Bears. Drop Bears, 1,100 backers, $63,000 raised, 15 days to go. Drop Bears coming to you from Matt. I believe Matt. I forgot the name. Matt. Is it Matt or Matt? I think it's Matt. Like Matt Aslan, something like that. I think the name is Matt Aslan. Let's see if we find over here. Matthew Aslan. Matthew Aslan. You see, I got that name. Drop Bears. Drop Bears coming to you from the creator of the Ratcatcher. Matthew Aslan, the creator of the Ratcatcher. And Drop Bears is another kind of adjacent Australia-themed game of Drop Bears. Dropping on tourists and basically ripping their heads off. And I don't know if they rip their heads off or not. But they're very threatening, apparently. They're very, very threatening, these Drop Bears. You can play this game solo or cooperatively. I don't believe you can play it competitively. I can't recall exactly where that was. I've been watching too many campaigns today, so I don't remember exactly. But it has a solo mode, has a co-op mode. You have these drop bears who are dropping down, trying to take you down. As you try to gather Australian-themed outback gear, as you try to take down the drop bears or avoid, or basically just really survive. Survival is the main goal in this 1 to 4 player game, 30 to 4 minutes. You may die, but no elimination. Collect unique gear, face terrifying drop bears, explore the perilous Aussie bush, cooperate to survive the night, and fight for your survival until dawn. This is basically the things my nightmares are made of, which is drop bears. I regularly wake up at night thinking I'm going to go for a walk in the woods and something's going to drop me from a tree, and it's going to be a horrific Australian drop bear. Maybe. I don't really know, but hey, it's a real threat, and we need to be mindful of it. Past that, over here, $10 for the print and play, $79 or $7 to be more specific, sorry, $7 US for the print and play, and $54 US for the drop bear core set. That's going to be the options over here on the table. As far as should you back or should you not, will hold its value. The closest thing we can look at, obviously, is Ratcatcher, and Ratcatcher did do a decent job holding its value. The price point compared to after the fact, Ratcatcher has done decently well for itself. This one is coming in a little bit more, but not significantly more, and also you have to factor in shipping, of course, how you might lose in shipping as well, especially as shipping prices continue to go up. But overall, Drop Bears is one that is a safe-ish back that you might lose $5, $10 on, or you might, not. It depends on how that one goes. But yeah, I would say it's a safe-ish back. You might lose a little bit, but not a lot on Drop Bears. And then we have Company of Heroes board game, second edition. Company of Heroes, 4,000 backers, $722,000 raised, 16 days to go. Company of Heroes did tremendously well the first time round. It has an 8.7 on Board Game Geek, has a ton of people who are very, very happy. I believe the original campaign did $800,000, and this one with 16 days to go, I guarantee you is eclipsing that number, is completely going well over that, almost certainly crossing $1 million, and well deserved for a game that has an 8.7 on Board Game Geek. Company of Heroes is a reminiscent or following the lead of the original video game. It's a skirmish game, tactical, squad-based combat to a degree, with a high focus on building and improving and upgrading and building buildings. A lot of economy, a lot of things out there, but it might also run you a very long time. This is an invested game. Think Joan of Arc style investment, where there's a whole lot of game here, a whole lot of experience, but it might take a lot of time to set up, a lot of time to play. It might run you 6 hours, or it might run you 2 hours, depending on how or what you're trying to do. There's a lot here, both in price point and content and everything. This is a lot of game. Just make sure you know what you're signing up for before you go ahead and get this one, because I think if you walk into this game knowing what you're signing up for, there's a decent chance it'll work for you. An 8.7 is a very solid rating, but also walk in knowing what you're signing up for. They've also made some changes between the first edition and the second edition, which is a good time to take a look at the stretch goals, the purchase, the pledge levels. We have the second edition upgrade kit for $49, which gives you a whole bunch of stuff past the 2 years of testing and feedback and reviews and all those different things coming in. They have a whole bunch of new stuff over here, although that will cost you $49 for all that upgrade kit stuff. Then we have $99 for the new backers for the second edition core set if you want that, and we have $219 for the new backers with the 4-player bundle, going up to $235 for the veteran backers new products bundle. You can spend a lot of money on this game, a lot of different bundle options, a lot of different pledges, a lot of different all-in for just getting all the stuff you want, all the pledges, the teams, the units, the core game, the expansions, every single thing in this game, the buildings. There's a lot of stuff over here, but again, it is a well-rated, well-loved system. I believe One Stop Card Shop had some nice things to say. Others have a million other names that I've seen as I'm scrolling through this page and going through it over here. They're unlocking stuff day by day, they're showing more stuff, just a lot of stuff. Squad-based combat, building, improvement, tableau, all those different things as you level up, improve, and slowly take down your enemy across anywhere between 2 to 6 hours of gameplay. That is Company of Heroes. Should you back it? Should you not? Will it hold its value? Short version is yes. Overall, if you look at the original Kickstarter campaign, it has done a no-brainer at holding its value. This goes back to that 8.7 rating, which is when you have a rating like that with a game that was Kickstarter, had a lot of exclusive content, you're going to find copies that hold their value just fine, and they very much have had that. There are copies that have gone for twice the price over here in terms of just people trying to desperately get their hands on the game that has a lot of hype, a lot of buzz, is doing very well, and they want to get their hands on it. That likely will hold true for the follow-up expansion as well, everything you're seeing here. I generally give the caveat that sequel campaigns always have a little bit more buy-in from all the people who missed it the first time around, but they usually do a fine job holding their value if the first one holds the value. Possibly not as much, but still not as much as just means not as much. There's a lot going on here, and twice the price leaves lots of wiggle room for, 1.5 times the price or any number of different things over here. There's lots of content. There's lots of ways to spend money on this game. Lots of everything. Lots of everything. That's going to be Company of Heroes. From there, we move to Splinterland's deck building game, 139 backers, $13,000 raised. Splinterland's deck building game is a post-apocalyptic deck building game of, more building out your deck, mixing up factions together, utilizing your core faction strengths as you try to survive in the post-apocalyptic wasteland. You'll have the dunes, you'll have the building out your unique encampment, you can have a lot of cards and the ways you can upgrade, slide, adapt the cards. If I can try to show you some stuff over here. There's also building yourself into the game, which I think this was humorous but not the best idea. Over here they're showing you a representation that they're totally going to do a better job than this. The problem with this is that I think most people who don't like people drawn to the game, this is exactly what their fear is. Exactly the fear of some horrifically drawn adjustment where it's like doesn't fit in at all. And even though this was humorous and tongue-in-cheek, if you miss this part where they say obviously we're doing a better job, it could not be the best look. And also you don't get to see what the actual quality will be like. How naturally does it fit and flow? I'm wasting my time on a giant tangent. I apologize. Not the intent. The point is, this is a post-apocalypse survival game with a few pledge levels. We have over here, we have $35 for the Splinter tier, we have $45 for the Militia tier, and then we have $125 for the Veteran tier, giving you a whole bunch of stuff for this game, a whole bunch of ways to dive into this one. As far as should you back or should you not, will it hold its value? Generally, I'd say it's likely not. With 139 backers and 24 days to go, they may double that back count. They might. I don't know, but it's still a hard sell as far as just sitting there and saying, hey, this will have a demand after the fact. It might, but I think the demand is going to be minimal. But then again, the flip side of this conversation, if you've been watching me long enough, is that it means also the availability is minimal too, which means if you want this game, even though it will not hold its value, almost certainly will not, at the end of the day, you're looking at 139 backers, which means if you want this game, there's just not a lot of secondhand market or retail guaranteed whatsoever. Maybe a convention, maybe the publisher's website, maybe this Kickstarter, or maybe somebody else in the secondhand market. There's not a lot of choices, so choose accordingly. And from there, and lastly, we have Snapship Tactics Constructible Miniatures game. We've made good time today, primarily because it's 1 a.m. in the morning, and I'm more in a rush because I don't want to be up to 2 a.m. because I've been doing that the entire last week, and it's not been the best on my whole, like, you know, system. My system's kind of like, you know what, going to bed at 2, waking up at 6 is not the best for you on a regular, repeated basis. Maybe if you do it here and there, but not every night. Every night seems like it's too much, and so now my body's pushing back, and it's pushing back by refusing to allow this to back and not to back to drag out to the 60 minutes it can often drag out to. I don't know if I'm talking faster, if I'm skipping information. I don't know what's happening, honestly. All I know is this video could have easily been a 50-minute long video. I still have time. I can easily make it drag out longer. Snapship Tactics. Snapship Tactics Constructible Miniatures game. 620 backers, $120,000 raised, and that's primarily because of the fact that the toy factor on this is huge. The game looks fun. The product already exists to a degree. The toy part exists, not the tactics part. And then also, you can spend $400 or $500 on this at a shot, which is fairly easy to do and fairly compelling to do, considering that this stuff is a giant toy with tons of just Lego and ships and fun and things and stuff and all those things. Build custom modular spacecraft and battle them in versus co-op or solo play. I have almost a preview on this, first impressions, but it's a review, but like not really a full review because I didn't really properly play it at the variety of player counts I'd want to experience this at. I enjoyed my time with Snapships, but I really need to play it more to see where it settles for me. But I love the toy factor. I love the building and adjusting of your ships and the process of kind of deciding how to modulate based on how that battle went and kind of side deck your parts and build them in. It's a very compelling system, very intriguing, and just, again, excellent toy factor. My testimonial, I believe, says something about toy factor, which is what they took out of it, and I highly, I'm scrolling down to price points, we'll come to it later, and I highly agree. I think this game looks a lot of fun, and also I'm biased because I have 4 kids, and all 4 of my kids were playing with this on the table for hours and hours and hours, and so, yeah, there's also that. Anyways, we have pledge levels. We have a whole bunch of pledge levels. Now, keep in mind, again, this is both a game. If you can go on Amazon right now and search Snapships, and you'll find the game. But, sorry, not game, both the toy. You'll find the toy factor on Amazon, or the and that's just called Snapships. Or if you call Snapship Tactics, you'll have the game element where you can mix and match the two to try to actually have a skirmish game. So both things are going on here. $99 gives you the starter ship for Tactics. $199 gives you all these extra ships as well. So you're paying an extra $100, you're getting all this over here. Feel free to price compare on Amazon and see how well for your region or what it is, how well that compares. Maybe it's worth getting the $99 pledge on its own and then paying the $80, $100, $200, whatever it's cost to get whatever ships you want directly from Amazon. May well be worth it. Plus you can experience the joy of all the miniature building in the meantime and build your own epic, ridiculous, over the top. I was at Origins, no, not Origins, PAX. I was at PAX last year and I saw the Snapships table and they had some amazing stuff going on as far as the things you can build with this toy factor part, not even getting to the tactics part. From there we have $369 for basically a whole lot more. $369 for everything from trays to the game to just tons and tons of ships over here, bringing you a ton of things as far as building out your product line, which is why, by the way, you could have 600 backers and $120,000 raised, because if you spend $200 per backer, or if you average $200 backer, that will definitely happen. As far as the gameplay itself, it's fairly basic as far as the actual gameplay. You're basically activating cards, you're using a bit of a cube management system, you're rolling dice to attack, you're being mindful of the positioning and the weapons and how you're going to do all that stuff. You're taking down opponents' parts as well at the same time so that they spend energy to refresh them instead of being able to use them. Basic, past that is basic a grid, not really grid, ruler-based and turning combat that you'd find in a classic miniatures game. I'm intrigued by the game. I've played the game. I really want to play it more as a 2 versus 2 or 3 versus 3 to get more of a sense of the scope of the spaceship battle, but it seems to do a good job, although it is on the large side. I had people point out correctly that, hey, these are very, very large compared to like what you might get in a Star Wars X-Wing, and that is a nice addition as far as toy factor goes, but it's not a great addition as far as being maximizing the table space. Having a 3 versus 3 on this is going to take up a decent amount of table space because the models are large, so take that into account as well as far as whether this is a game for you. Will it hold its value? Will it not? Uncertain on this one. Basically, the problem is this is a readily available toy on Amazon, and we're talking about the Snapship Tactics, which is this separate aspect, $100 basically for this extra box of Snapship Tactics. I'm very uncertain on this one. I do not have a confident answer on this one at all. It's very different than what I usually cover. It is a board game, but it's also like board game adjacent, and it's a game that's being tacked onto an already existing product line. I would say I do not believe this will fully hold its value, but it will probably be fine as far as mostly holding its value. The problem is you have a lot of that toy factor there, and you might get bundles of this. And the problem is when you have bundles, you might see people who's just selling it for less just to get rid of it. Like, oh, hey, I have all this stuff mixed in a giant box. It's not exactly what you'd get, but I'll just sell $170 and call it a day, so I only lost $30. So that aspect of it, the fact that it's all condensed and contrasted and just put into a giant bin half the time, I think that does mean that this will be available cheaper down the road, but I'm not confident in this one. It is very different than the stuff I usually cover. And that is basically everything. That's all the stuff we have today, which means it's time for the picks of the week. Picks of the week in general, I picked two things. One game that I believe is the most likely to hold its value, and one game that is the most interested on a personal level. To that end, I'm going to go ahead and pick Company of Heroes as the game that is most likely to hold its value. Like I said already, this one, in terms of the should you back or should you not, the original game, some copies are selling for more than twice what people paid for them, and it's a consistent thing. It's not even like a occasionally find one out. This is selling for well above its value in the second-hand market. This is one that I believe will do just fine holding its value on the second thing. So if you want a game that is very likely to do just fine, Company of Heroes, the board game, second edition, I think that is the most likely. That's going to be our value pick of the week. And again, value pick does not mean the cheapest or best bang for your buck. It just means the game that's most likely to hold its value as far as down the road goes, getting it now versus later for all the stuff, or selling it if it's not for you. As far as my personal interest pick of the week, I'm going to go with Cyberpunk 27 for that one. And this is one that I still think will hold its value, but I think Company of Heroes is a safer pick on that front. But as far as personal interest goes, Cyberpunk 27 was a great area control plus a bunch of other stuff game that, while it doesn't compare to Blood Rage, and it doesn't compare to Innocent, it doesn't compare to Cyclades and Kemet for me in terms of the arena of those games, it does do a fairly good job of giving me a lot of the general feelings of a solid area control with multiple pathways to victory, and it does so in a shorter playtime than almost any other area control game that I like this much. I would say in terms of the ratio of how much I like it versus the playtime, this hits a very, very solid ratio, and I'm excited to add this one to my collection and to continue to dive back into it. And that is Cyberpunk 27, and with that, we're going to go ahead and call it on the rest of the video. This has been your to back or not to back. We will have more of these coming in future weeks, probably one coming next week. I don't know for sure. Hopefully not filming that one at 1 in the morning, because that seems like a bad idea that I probably should. I really need to get my timeline in order. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. In any case, until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. Thank you for being here, and as always, have a good one. I was talking to my buddy, and he recently started selling things for funeral homes, and he was trying to get me sold on a coffin, and I told him that's the last thing I needed.